1, 2, 3. Bomb.
Bomb.
Great, fantastic. Hit me.
Woo! All right. We are here today recording the podcast. It's Quarter Twins, the only podcast where 2 quarters equals $1. We are here. Josh and I are here. We're recording on a Wednesday, which is a little bit different for us. Feels kind of nice. Feels a little bit different. I'm back at the couch, much more comfortable.
I'm back in the
which
same
is
spot.
Nice. Same
Haven't
as
moved.
always. Soon to be different.
Yes.
We'll never see that spot again.
For all the people who are so devastated that I will be graduating from college, which is no one, hopefully. This will be the last podcast here in my lovely house apartment thing. You can see we're packing up. I don't know. You can't see it, but they can on there. There's a picture of a cow on the wall. We're moving out. So everything's a bit of a mess in here. I got tubs everywhere. But shot looks great. Next week I will be back home living with my parents, which I'm not ashamed of at all.
No.
And that's I'm being serious because that's free housing, thankfully for me. So looking for a job, all that sort of stuff, moving out into the world, which is the future. It's exciting. Who knows what will become of me. But we're hyped. Speaking of graduation, I gave myself a gift recently. An expensive gift. I'm broke. Baddie.
You don't have to tell us the amount, but
Oh, I won't.
if you wanted to just flex.
I could. But then knowing now that I'm broke would mean that that's all of the money I had. So.
Yeah, right.
100 was like, 90% of my life savings.
Fair enough.
Anyway, Baddie Bo Baddie is the name we have dubbed the future PC, desktop PC that I will be running for my own YouTube channel, youtube.com, Razmafu, twitch.tv/Razmafu. Shout out myself. That's RAZAMUPHU.
Our sponsor today, Razmafu.
No. I may put the logo on there. Who knows? Actually, I'm not editing the YouTube video this week.
Throw it in there.
Oh, well, lovely. I have a PNG for you if you want.
Oh, please send it over.
Transparent background. Anyway.
Yeah, please.
I sent in the order for the pre-built. Shout out to Ironside Computers for hooking me up. Well, they didn't hook me up. I paid for it. But, they are putting it all together as we speak. They're going to ship it over to me, hopefully, soon. And probably not next week, but maybe the week after. I'll have all of the pieces. I'm definitely going to be doing a whole unboxing setup tour and everything because I'm excited, and that's a fun YouTuber thing to do.
Sounds awesome.
Probably here on Quarter Twins, since I get more views on this YouTube channel than my own. But who knows? Maybe I'll put it on the other one too.
Yeah.
So go check those channels out on the YouTube. We put a lot of work into those videos, and it is fun. Huh? How about that? Okay. Moving on. What are we talking about today?
We have some fun things to talk about. Mainly what we're here to do is to rank all the Spider-Man movies.
How many are there? 9?
There are 9 that we're including the animated Into the Spider-Verse. So together there are 9.
3, 2, and 1.
Yeah, that's right. There's 9. So we're very excited about that. We're very excited to be talking about Spider-Man. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Wasn't that a lovely message? Huh?
It was.
Don't you just love how I kind of fumble it at the beginning, but we kept that take? That's great.
Hey, guys.
Hey guys. Well, if you haven't already learned from Anchor from us,
It's Anchor, or whatever I say.
Welcome to Anchor. It's podcast.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man.
It's totally free, baby.
That is great. That's the highlight of the ad for me. It's totally free, baby.
Yeah.
It is. It's true. That's free.
It is. It's pretty nice. We don't have to pay for it.
It's a service.
We've racked up an entire $1.
We got ourselves $1. That's 2 quarters. 2 quarters. For each of us. I would say about every 2 weeks we get ourselves a quarter each.
Yeah, pretty much. Which is good. Yeah. After taxes, it's a little bit less, but
they're not going to tax us on $1, bro. We're making out.
Yeah.
Like bandits. Okay.
Man, okay, so
speaking of avoiding the law. Huh? How about this transition? Boom.
That's a
She-Hulk.
transition and a half.
The new Marvel Disney Plus show She-Hulk, which is a fantastic name, by the way. Who came up with that one? The trailer, teaser, TV spot dropped for this new show. I just looked at her name, and I don't remember it anymore. Tatiana something, I think.
Something.
Will be playing She-Hulk. You may recognize her as a one-off cameo episode in Parks and Rec where she plays a nurse without borders trying to rent a tent.
You might.
You may.
From that.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. She did a great job.
Haven't seen that show. I've seen a few episodes.
That is a tragedy. I think I watched them with you, and I showed one of the more raunchy episodes, and then your parents walked up.
No.
And that was that.
We watched, I think that was Community. We watched Community together.
Oh, that's an even better show. That's a lie. I lied to your face just now.
I haven't watched it since
Parks
we
and Rec
watched
is better.
it like 4 years ago.
Yeah. Anyway, She-Hulk is out. The trailer came out. I don't really know much about her connection to Bruce Banner at all. She's not blood related, I don't think.
He says cousin in the show, but they're like, they don't seem like they're actually related. I don't know.
Who can say? She is a defense attorney?
Yeah.
Prosecutor.
Yeah. From what I
lawyer.
can tell from the trailer, they some group is putting together like a law firm for superheroes, basically.
Oh, right.
So since she's a Hulk lady who's also an attorney, they want her to be a lawyer.
She just wants to be a normal lawyer.
Yeah.
But she's
a normal
Hulk.
Girl. Yeah. She's honestly like not super hulking. I was
a little disappointed. She's just bigger and green.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
I wasn't super impressed by this trailer, to be totally honest.
No.
It doesn't look good.
To be
totally honest.
I made sure to look at the YouTube comments after I watched the trailer because I thought, we're gonna find something in here. And honestly, people were pretty hype. I don't know if Marvel is deleting negative comments, which is something you can do. But the top comment was like, the CGI looks bad. And I was like, yeah, we're getting into this now.
Yeah, it does.
But then everything else was like, I can't wait. Every Marvel show is perfect, and this one's no different. And I was like, wow, all right.
I saw that comment too, yeah.
But that was the biggest thing for me. I thought that the CGI like face tracking kind of looked a little odd.
Yeah. Somebody had photoshopped She-Hulk into like Grand Theft Auto loading screens, and it looks so authentic, which is not a compliment. So
I'm sure that it's like, this is the trailer, it's an old model, what blah blah blah, because Bruce Banner's Hulk has looked amazing in the last couple appearances that he's been in. So I don't really think that it'll look bad. We'll just have to see if the actual show is good.
We'll see.
Yeah, so that'll be definitely something we will have to add to the docket. Hopefully it doesn't conflict with Obi-Wan, because there's definitely a priority there for me.
That starts next week, and I'm hyped.
Oh my gosh.
I can't believe it's coming out next week.
Dude, next week is going to be a great episode, but we can talk about that at the end.
Oh, sure.
Or we could talk about it now, because we're hyping up a guest. We might as well talk about it right now.
Sure, yeah. For those of you who don't listen until the end.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
We know who you are. No, that's a lie.
We don't. We can
next
see
week-
when people stop listening, but we
That's
can't
true.
see your name.
I would like to see where that is because I don't know about that.
Mm.
In the analytics somewhere on Anchor, probably. Anyway, next week we'll be having another guest episode. So get hype for my sister's husband, a.k.a. my brother-in-law. Is that the official term?
That's the one.
Okay. Brian Zur.
Brian
We're going to have
Zur.
Brian Zur come onto the podcast, talk about his favorite movie alongside the first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan
So
Kenobi.
pumped.
So get hyped for that. Tell your friends. Spread the word. Caitlin, you better watch that episode. I don't know if you watch the
husband's
other
in it.
ones. Yeah, but your husband's in it at least. And your brother. And one of your cousins. Come on now.
Yeah, it's like a family reunion over here.
Yeah.
So you better
So,
be watching.
Get hyped for that. I still need to watch his favorite movie because I've never seen it.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
would have totally forgotten to actually watch it.
So we have to watch that movie.
Yeah.
And set up our document for that and everything. But that you guys don't need to know about that. So that's not for you to
Insider. That's for
Yeah.
Patreon subscribers.
Oh, when are we getting a Patreon?
As soon as we start making $2.
In another 8 weeks.
Yep.
All right. We already did the ad. So let's just jump in right in.
Swing.
Am I recording audio?
Right in.
I am.
You
Yeah,
see
okay,
what
that's
I,
great.
See what I did there?
Swing?
Right into this. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Whew.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Let me say that again. Spider-Man. All right.
That was really good.
Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's
The
perfect wonder child.
Yes. Spider-Man
Um,
is our collective favorite superhero.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very pumped.
We are
Talking
very
about
excited.
Spider-Man.
I think this is something this was one of the original ideas
Yeah.
for the podcast, Star Wars, Spider-Man, and Marvel in general.
Mhm.
So this is, one of the big ones, people. All right. Remember that first episode when we got 80 listens? Let's get back up there, huh? Let's get hype.
We got to wait.
That'd be crazy. No, that's
fine.
fine. Spider-Man. Well, we have a guided discussion here.
We do.
Let's run up some Q&As. Q's and A's.
Just to keep us on track a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it. Guided. I love that.
Yeah.
Jordan, what is your relationship with Spider-Man? How has Spider-Man in your life? Obviously, if you've watched the second episode of this podcast where we talked about our top 10 all-time favorite movies, you will know that Sam Raimi's original Spider-Man movie from 2002, 2001?
2002.
2002 is Mr. Jordan's #1 movie of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see where it lands on the Spider-Man movie rankings.
Yeah.
If it
has
holds up.
We'll see.
But
There might be some inconsistencies
uh-oh.
in that area. We'll talk about it. I have an explanation, but
Okay, I'd love to hear it.
we'll
But
get
we
there.
can talk about more in general your relationship with Spider-Man and Peter Parker.
Yeah, so we've said Spider-Man is both of our favorite superheroes. I guess, I'll just kind of collect all these questions into this answer because they all kind of go together, I guess.
I hear you.
Yeah, trying to remember my first memory of Spider-Man. I think I obviously saw the Tobey Maguire movies first. Probably, I'm going to guess, for the first time when I was 8-ish years old. And they were like my jam. I loved those movies. I did the thing where I do the crawl on the wall.
Bum.
Yeah. I did that a lot. Always wanted to be Spider-Man as a kid and really looked up to Peter Parker. And something that's not on the list because it's not a movie, but one of my favorite shows of all time, The Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh,
The
is that the
animated.
Drake Bell one, or
I don't know.
we're way before then, probably?
Probably way before that. Yeah. So, thank you for typing that in there.
Yes.
Yeah, I still have an email address, peterparker1@centurylink.net. You can't send anything to it 'cause CenturyLink doesn't
CenturyLink.
exist. It doesn't exist anymore.
Ancient times.
Yeah, dude, centurylink.net. peterparker1. Send me an email.
Send him a G chat
Yeah.
or something. I don't even know. AOL.
Always kind of looked up to the character of Peter Parker. He's what Stan Lee and Steve Ditko created, was the ultimate kind of relatable superhero alter ego. He has relatable problems and always kind of found some way to relate to him, whether that was in school or whatever. But yeah, always been my favorite. Loved the Sam Raimi movies. Was hype for the Andrew Garfield movies when they were coming out in 2012. Really liked those movies at the time. Still like them a little bit. We'll get to it. Was a big fan of those. Those came out 2012 and 2014. And then even more hype when Tom Holland took over the role for Captain America Civil War. That was like
he just showed up.
One of the best moments. They put it in a trailer, which I didn't care at the time because I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, Spider-Man in the Marvels, with the Iron Man and Captain, and
It was amazing.
It was pretty hype, and it's pretty cool that the character has kind of just weaved his way throughout my entire life. Weaver.
Oh,
That's funny.
oh my! This guy,
Yeah. Connection.
a literary master.
But yeah, always been a big part of my life. Spider-Man has been. I feel a little bit like a fraud because I don't read the comics. Never read comic books, to be totally honest. I've read one comic book that a friend gave me once.
Captain Underpants.
No, it was actually a Spider-Man
Oh, okay.
comic book. It was the one. It was like a guy who had like big water guns that Spider-Man was fighting. I also
Interesting.
had the Death of Spider-Man, which was one where he meets Thanos, which is a really cool
Just
one.
randomly.
He dies. I think Peter Parker. Well, he's like in the halfway point where the character Death is there, and Thanos is like in love with Death, and
What?
it's a whole like thing. Because Spider-Man chooses to save this girl or whatever. It's a really good comic, I think. I don't really remember.
Wow.
Obviously, don't remember. It's really cool. The cover is really cool. It's like a big Thanos head, and he has the gauntlet, and he's holding Spider-Man in his hand. Just like
Wow.
It's pretty dope.
That's
But anyway, how about you, Joshua? What's your relationship with the
man.
man himself?
With the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, I think for me, it is a little bit different. I watched those original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and I was like, Spider-Man's cool. This is before I knew the difference of DC and Marvel. I was like, when is Superman and Batman going to meet up with Spider-Man? Those are the three superheroes that I knew.
Yeah.
And Marvel Cinematic Universe goes, right? And we have Amazing Spider-Man. And I was like, oh, cool, he's in the MCU, I guess. Not true. Even then, I didn't really understand what was happening. And I was like, this is okay. And then we get the Tom Holland Spider-Man. And at this point, I'm all in on the MCU, right? And I have been since, the first Avengers movie, I would say, by then. And I knew all that there was to know about Spider-Man from like a beginner Marvel fan, no comic books standpoint. And in Civil War came out in 2016?
Yeah.
Look at me. I know the numbers.
Spot on.
Spider-Man was like this younger character for once. And everybody's talking about, oh, this is the comic book Spider-Man we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
Because Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are older, but they're still playing high schoolers, which is like a thing.
Like 30.
Yeah, whatever. No one in those Tobey Maguire movies looks like the age
No.
they're supposed to be.
So funny.
Yeah, whatever. I really liked Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and it kind of made me more interested in the character overall. And then in 2018, the PS4 Spider-Man video game came out.
Yes.
And before we even get to the rankings, I'm going to tell you right now that is my favorite Spider-Man. That's
beautiful.
That's crazy business, by the way.
A beautiful
Hot take, perchance. Yuri Lowenthal, I believe, is the voice actor. And potentially motion capture. I'm not sure how they did all that stuff. Such a good Spider-Man story. The best Aunt May, also, in my opinion.
Yep.
Sorry, Marissa Tomei, but
Aunt May kind of suffers through these films. I feel like. I feel like there's not a definitive Aunt May in the movies. I feel like you're spot on in saying that May and Spider-Man PS4 is top notch.
Oh man, so I played that game. It's the first game for any of you gamers out there. PlayStation gamers. That's the first game that I platinum trophied, which is the 100% collect all of the trophies ever. So, including the DLC. So I got the extra content, played all that stuff too. 100%. Every collectible, every suit. You got the Future Foundation Spider-Man. You got the Sam Raimi Spider-Man suit. You know, it's all in there. There's like 40 of them. Anyway, I loved that game. And I think that specifically gave me a reason to like really claim that Peter Parker and Spider-Man was my favorite superhero. And you said it a little bit earlier about Peter Parker being the most relatable, like down-to-earth character. And I think that that Peter Parker is the reason that I like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That Peter Parker is the quintessential character for guys like us. And I think he appeals to us specifically. And yeah, I don't know, man. He's a special character.
He really is.
And it's so awesome to see him represented in multiple mediums. We also have the Into the Spider-Verse animated movie where we get multiple Peter Parkers, we get Spider-Gwen, we get Miles Morales, Porky Pig or whatever. Spider-Ham, I think, actually.
Yeah,
Porky Pig is Looney Tunes.
Yeah. Basically the same character. Just
pretty much the same.
Spider themed.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a lot of people got Spider-Man fatigue, and they're like, oh, another Spider-Man? Like, how are we going to do this again? And I guess I get that in the long term, but it's like the same thing with Star Wars. It's like, all Star Wars is good Star Wars, man.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Even the bad Star Wars is still good Star Wars.
It's good Star Wars. Let's be real. So, I like a good Peter Parker, and Peter Parker is the benchmark for my ranking going forward as well.
That's
because that's the character I'm more interested in than Spider-Man himself. So
yeah.
Booyah. I have no idea when I first saw the old Spider-Man movies. I hadn't seen Spider-Man 2 till like a few years ago when I bought the full discography on my PlayStation of all the Spider-Man movies, which didn't include the Marvel movie, the Spider-Man Homecoming, just the first 5.
Yeah.
And so I watched it and I was like, whoa, wow, this is a movie. Good or bad? Who can say?
Who can say?
Not right now, anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my take. I don't have any special connection long term. I don't have an email. I'm not into photography. But Jordan is into photography, by the way. I don't know if that's been explicitly. But Peter Parker takes photos. Jordan's wife takes photos. Jordan takes photos. It's a whole thing.
I carry a camera around sometimes when I want people to say, "Hey, you look like Peter Parker."
There you go.
I do get all the time.
I remember growing up being like, "Yeah, my cousin looks like Toby." Like bragging about that for some reason.
That's funny.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we just jump right into the rankings?
I think we covered it. I think you really hit the nail on the head there about Peter Parker.
Thanks.
So
let's briefly go over what the movies are that we'll be ranking. So we have a benchmark, and then we'll just jump in. So we have Sam Raimi's trilogy, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, or 2.1, Spider-Man 3, and then Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man. I think they were both directed by Mark Webb, which is just Mark Webb, Spider-Man.
So on the nose. Yeah,
that's awesome.
On the nose.
Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yep.
And then we have the Marvel Cinematic Universe trilogy, which will be Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man No Way Home.
It's going to get confusing.
I hate that. That's the first time I noticed how annoying that was to say in a row.
Yep.
And then the final extra one that we're going to tack on is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which we will be definitely doing an episode on the newer Across the Spider-Verse?
Across.
So
we're going to have to wait like an entire year now. So.
Oh, did it get delayed?
It got delayed an entire year.
Wow, that is
Sorry to break your heart. It was supposed to come out this summer. They delayed it.
That's
Which I'm honestly like, take your time. Because make it as good as you can. That's what I say. Because the first one is, I'll get
so good. It's a good movie.
It's a really good one.
We're not going to front on that one.
It's a really, really good one.
So we have 9 spots to give out. Let's just hop right in.
Yeah.
Jordan, what is your bottom of the barrel Spider-Man movie? The worst one.
I do want to give a disclaimer. I do genuinely love 8 out of the 9 of these.
Ooh.
So this one is the one that I do not love, and that is Far From Home. It's a hot take.
This is it, ladies and gentlemen. This has been brewing for me.
I've been just waiting to talk about how much I hate Far From Home.
I'm so excited to hear what this is, because Spider-Man Far From Home, or No Way Home. Wait, which one did you say?
Far From Home.
Okay.
So the second Tom Holland.
It's not as hot of a take.
It's not as hot of a take.
It's not as hot of a take.
I think it's still probably a hot take for a lot of people. But
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Spider-Man Far From Home, the second Tom Holland movie.
Yes.
The MCU movie directly after Avengers Endgame. So after Tony Stark dies in Endgame. Spoilers. Spoilers for all these Spider-Man movies.
And a few of the MCU movies probably.
Yeah. So here's where I come clean about something. I am honest to the world. I really like Tom Holland as Peter Parker in Civil War and the last 20 minutes of No Way Home. I really like him as the character in those 2 instances. Everything in between, I'm not a huge fan of. And this movie, Far From Home, is probably the perfect example. So there's a quote from Stan Lee that I'd like to read. We've talked a lot about Peter Parker, and I think this quote from Stan Lee will help me guide my thoughts. So Stan Lee speaking about Peter Parker. He says, I won't make him the handsomest guy in the world or the strongest. I won't make him rich. He'll have money problems. I had money problems in those days. I said he won't be that popular. It won't be easy for him to get a girl. He has to worry about getting dates. And I figured that most of the kids or the teenagers or the young adults who read these stories would be able to relate to that. Because, life isn't easy for anybody, really.
Wow.
End quote. So.
And there it is.
Pretty much everything Stan Lee lays out about how he created Spider-Man or Peter Parker and the man that Peter Parker is to Stan Lee is not the case for the Peter Parker in the MCU for the most part. So this Peter Parker obviously is mentored by Tony Stark, and throughout the movies we see he doesn't have money problems because Tony is kind of funding him.
Right.
He never really has to deal with that much. It's not hard for him to get a girl in Spider-Man Homecoming. He is just kind of like, he talks to the girl that he's a crush on. He's like, you want to go to the prom? And she's like, yeah, sure. And
that's true.
And Peter and MJ in Homecoming are kind of like frenemies type relationship. And then in Far From Home, we're supposed to believe that she's just all of a sudden wanting to date him, and he doesn't even have to really work to get that relationship. She's just already like, I'm in love with you. You're Spider-Man. That's awesome. I want to be your girl. Everything just kind of works out extremely well for him. He doesn't really have that much. Most of his movies don't end with any lasting consequences. And so that, for me, the most of Tom Holland's entries as Peter Parker just don't feel like Peter Parker or Spider-Man to me for the most part. And especially this one, Far From Home, just the one where he goes to Europe on a class trip. And it was after Endgame, and it basically just like, I don't need the MCU to be like super dark and depressing all the time, but it goes from Endgame to this movie where everything that happened is just kind of a joke and it's hilarious. And everything's funny. The blip is happening. Oh, we'll just put, pictures of the dead Avengers over the "I Will Always Love You" song, and it'll be a big funny joke. And I don't know. It just feels super unnatural to me, and the whole plot device of the glasses that Tony gives Peter and basically gives him like ultimate power to command this basically intelligence that can order a drone strike and all of these things, and just doesn't make very much sense. Peter Parker is just kind of, I find him extremely annoying. the way Tom Holland plays him in these movies, it's just kind of like, I don't know, what are we gonna do, guys? Yeah. And that just, I don't know. This movie really just gets on my nerves. It doesn't feel like Spider-Man. The fact that Nick Fury is in it pisses me off. I really dislike Nick Fury in the MCU after, I don't know, Age of Ultron maybe. I think his presence is just whatever. I think he distracts from... No longer needed. I think he's a distraction to the story. Mysterio is a pretty good villain, I think, but I don't know.
He's kind of a Tony Stark villain.
Yeah, that's also the thing. Like most of the villains in Homecoming, Far From Home, they don't really have a problem with Peter Parker. They have a problem with Tony Stark, and that just doesn't seem super Spider-Man to me. But yeah, it's not like a bad movie necessarily. It's just it's not Spider-Man to me. So that's my case.
Wow. And what a good case it was. Got to move my ranking around just
That's
listening
right.
to your impassioned speech. For me, sorry. For me, I have Far From Home at, was it 987?
Okay.
So it beat the benchmark for me.
Yeah.
Which, if we're talking about Peter Parker's and not feeling like Spider-Man, I think that Andrew Garfield's entries into the Spider-Verse are not up to snuff, in my opinion. Those are the bottom two in my list.
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man at the bottom and Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm going to kind of lump these two together just because they're basically the same and at the bottom. Andrew Garfield is a fantastic actor.
Oh, yeah.
I will not...
A master.
I will not shade him at all. If you haven't seen... what is it called? Facebook? That movie? The Social Network.
Social Network, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I forgot to put... I was going to put in the recommendations for later all of just the amazing Andrew Garfield movies that are kind of overlooked. But we'll all
He's so good. What is it?
He's
Hacksaw
master.
Ridge.
Yep.
Tick,
Tick Boom.
Tick,
just
Tick
came
Boom.
out.
Recent movie.
Silence. Incredible
Silence.
film.
There you go.
You seen Silence?
No.
Dude. Great movie.
Great movie. Wow.
Great film.
He's an amazing actor. So I can't slight him on this one or these two movies. I think he was given he's just too good. He's too good looking. He's too smart. He's too much. So I kind of thought about this last night in bed because I'm, cutting it close. I recently watched Captain America, and I came to the conclusion that the Spider-Man suit does the same thing as the serum for Captain America. In terms of the personality characteristics, are amplified. So, Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland are these awkward kids. Maybe not Tom Holland as much as Jordan would have you believe. But they put on the suit and they gain this confidence, they kind of become the person that they wish they were. Obviously that person is like an exaggeration, right? They start making all these snarky comments, they're joking around, they're having fun. They're very Obi-Wan Kenobi Clone Wars, if you get that reference. Booyah.
Hello there.
Yeah, ooh, hello there. But Andrew Garfield is already that. He doesn't have problems getting the girl. There's never any time where it feels like he is struggling to pay rent. He lives with his aunt. He and what's her name, Emma Stone, have the most chemistry of any two actors I've ever seen on screen.
Yes.
To a point where it's annoyingly gross.
Yeah.
That they're rubbing it in our faces.
Yeah.
And then he puts on the suit, and the same thing happens where his confidence level rises to a insurmountable it's too much. So in Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Uncle Ben is killed, right?
Yep.
Am I even thinking that? It's been so long since I've even seen Amazing Spider-Man. I don't even remember.
Yeah. You should watch it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does get killed in that movie.
Yeah, okay. I can't even picture the Uncle Ben in Amazing Spider-Man. I don't even know what he looks like. Oh, no, I do. Anyway, the whole scenario basically is that Andrew Garfield is sick. Or no, he's just getting some chocolate milk.
Yeah.
And he can't pay for it.
Yeah,
Dang
he's missing a penny.
Yeah. One of my points is no longer valid because he has money problems.
Ah.
Never mind.
He's got money
Amazing
problems.
Spider-Man. He's whatever.
No, I see what you're saying. Though. He doesn't really noticeably Like, he doesn't really need to get a job in those movies. He's just kind of... They don't make a point to, like, emphasize if he has money problems.
Right.
'Cause he does live with his aunt, even after he's graduated high school and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's something...
I see what you mean.
Yeah. Anyway, he goes to buy chocolate milk. He can't pay for it because he's missing 1 penny. A struggle we've all felt, I'm sure. Then this other guy robs the store at gunpoint and then throws the chocolate milk to Spider-Man. And the cashier's like, "What are you doing, man? Help me out. Stop that guy."
Yeah.
And if it was me in that situation, I would have reacted similarly to Andrew Garfield. I'd be like, that guy has a gun. I'm not going to risk my life
for sure.
for, $20 from your cash register.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not Captain America. And so then, immediately after, he's running outside. Uncle Ben is just walking down the street. There's no reason for him to have been there at all. He wasn't looking for Peter.
He was looking for Peter.
He was?
Because
Okay.
Peter...
Well, he was looking for Peter.
Peter stormed out, and he's going to...
Oh, you're right.
To look for him.
Right,
But
right.
what
I
he
need to
does
watch this
next,
movie. I
there's
should
no
watch it.
reason for what he does next.
Yes.
That's what we're gonna get to.
So Uncle Ben's walking randomly, able to find... He has like a tracker on Peter. He's able to find him in the dark of night.
Yeah, because New York
on
is
this.
very small. It's a small town.
Yes.
It's easy to find.
And so he's walking down. He sees this guy running. Well, he bumps into the guy with the gun.
Yep.
And the gun falls on the ground.
Yep.
Uncle Ben says, "Hey!"
He says,
And then,
"Hey!"
and tries to reach for the gun or like get the gun
Yeah.
or something, and the robber shoots him and kills him right there. Boom, dead. What a public servant he was.
Yeah, it's pretty silly.
And so that is the death. And so there's no...
Nobody would ever do that.
Yeah.
It would be like... I would be like... Bye.
It was just... Yeah, it was just dumb.
No.
Anyway, afterwards, Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker creates a suit and goes on a rampage looking for crime fighters, or looking for criminals, I should say, to find the guy who killed his uncle so that he can beat him up or kill him.
Probably kill him.
And he makes the suit so that people won't know who he is.
Yeah.
Which is not great.
He's a terrorist.
And and then he like, there's like points where he's just like, there's a specific quote from the movie where he's like, "I just did 80% of your job."
Yeah.
And
He's a huge
like,
jerk.
Yeah.
First.
Thank you. He is a huge jerk. And he's combative and non-compliant to the point of like all of the police don't like him, and it's like a point that they bring up a lot with Captain Stacy. And I don't know. It's just not good for me.
I think that was a symptom of they were trying to make the Dark Knight, but Spider-Man, which like the major part of Batman as a character is that the police really don't like him, but that's not as much a part of Spider-Man. It is sometimes, but
he's barely ever categorized as a vigilante.
Yeah.
Except for by JJJ.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So that's like the bottom. I just don't like those two movies.
So your number 9 is the
My
first
number
one?
9 is the first one. Number 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is better because Dane DeHaan shows up. Is that his name?
Yeah, Dane DeHaan.
Dane DeHaan shows up as Harry. Gosh, this is horrible that I don't know all this stuff. I should have watched these movies instead of all the other MCU movies. Harry Osborn.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I got it. I love this. I love these movies.
Spider-Man fans.
I think the script is so hilariously bad in this movie that I enjoy it.
Yep.
"You're a fraud, Spider-Man!" Like, come on.
So goofy.
It's so fantastically bad.
Yeah.
And his Green Goblin look is really bad. Jamie Foxx is Electro, and he becomes Electro. I don't know if this is comic book accurate. I don't know who came up with this. But he falls into a vat of electric eels one day.
He sure
and
does.
gets bitten by a bunch of electric eels in water. And they just turn him into a being made entirely of electricity.
Yep. Which is the comic origin story. But it is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
You don't
Who
have
came
to
up with
do
that
the
one?
same thing all the time.
And in this movie, they fix his teeth. And I'm gonna bring it up in the recommendations later.
Yeah.
I am pulling this directly from Cosmonaut Variety Hour because I didn't even notice it the first time I watched this movie.
Yeah.
But he talks about this and makes this same joke. I'll be honest. I'm straight up stealing this at this point.
I watched it earlier.
But the only reason that I bring it up is because there's a whole shot. It's like 2 seconds long of electricity coursing through his mouth, and his teeth, the gap between his 2 front teeth, goes away.
Yeah.
I don't know who thought that was great, but
It's really funny.
It's
hilarious.
It's the same reason I love the movie Space Chimps. Have you ever heard of Space Chimps,
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Oh my gosh. It is the worst movie of all time. It's a 3D animated movie from a while ago, I don't know when, of chimpanzees going through a wormhole and finding alien life and learning from the aliens and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It is so hilariously bad. I love it. It's the worst. It's the greatest worst movie. It's like Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Yes. That's a good film.
That is a great. I love that you said film and not movie. Yeah. So I just don't like Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker, which makes his Spider-Man worse. And I guess another thing, just to be like a film guy, the editing in these movies is bad.
Garbage.
And they have like a team of 3 editors, which you would think would help. It would be like, they have 3 minds are better than 1. But I guess they all edited the same clips over each other or something. It's just...
Yeah, it doesn't look good for a lot of it.
There's some choppy bits that are just not great.
There's some... Well, I'll get to it when I...
You go ahead.
I'll offer a little bit different perspective when I get there, but...
I'm excited to hear it.
We have in our recommendations, you recommended Cosmonaut Variety Hour has
Marcus.
videos on... Marcus, come on the podcast. Has
Please.
videos on Raimi Trilogy and the Amazing Spider-Man. And I recommend Hitop Films has some really good video essays on the Raimi movies and the first Amazing Spider-Man. And those kind of represent the 2 kind of spectrums of Spider-Man fandom. Hitop Films is very... Raimi films are the ultimate masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Cosmonaut is like Raimi films are very dated and not good. And that's kind of the...
I think he likes them.
He likes them, but he thinks
But not because they're good.
Right, he likes them because he thinks they're hilarious. And that's kind of the thing. Like, I don't want to... one is not better than the other. I think both are valid. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay.
Because we can. This is what we're missing today in this world, guys. We can sit here. We can have discourse even when we don't agree, and we can be nice. So, which leads me to my second hot take.
Here it is.
My number 8 is No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home. So
Wow.
No Way Home is below both of those movies you just talked about. Which is that's a hot take.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's where I just expose my soul to everybody again.
Okay.
Because I am very conflicted by No Way Home. I've seen it quite a few times now.
I've only seen it once.
The thing about this movie is the first half of it is unbearable to me. I very much dislike the first half. It's very what are we gonna do, guys? It grates on me, and I just
wow.
And the second half is like some of the best stuff with Toby and Andrew coming in, and the turning point is when Spider-Man and the Green Goblin have their fight in the apartment condo place, and Aunt May gets killed. That's the turning point. That's when it becomes a really good movie to me.
I agree.
Other than that, it's just kind of like basic stuff. So this makes me sound probably pretentious, but my main issue with this movie is that it looks terrible. The CGI is not finished. They're operating in lifeless environments, in green screens. People are walking around in a New York City that doesn't have anybody in it. They finished it last minute. A lot of the actors that they brought in to play their villains didn't even show up physically. They just recorded their lines, and it doesn't even make sense for the characters. Sandman is just sand the entire time, which is not his character. And the Lizard is a completely different character, even though they're the same actors. Their characters are nothing like how they were. Even Electro, which I think this Electro is an improvement over his original incarnation.
Yes.
It's just not the same character. The two that are fantastic are Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe, who performance of the year, Willem Dafoe. My God.
I mean, if we're being honest, they are the two best villains.
Yeah, and they are the main
they
villains.
got the best. Yes,
which helps the movie for sure. I just think that so much of this movie is distracting to me because it looks... When we talked about the Batman, I mentioned how when you look at the screenplay, every moment of the screenplay, the directors, the cinematographers, the editors, the score, everyone is trying to make every shot, every moment as interesting, compelling as possible. This movie is the other end of the spectrum where we just gotta shoot something. I don't care what it looks like. Just put it in there as fast as possible so that we can get this movie out. And a lot of that is the way that characters interact with environments, interact with each other. A lot of the actors are like when all of the villains are kind of imprisoned in Doctor Strange's basement, and they're all kind of in their own little cupboards. Like, you can tell that none of them are in the same room together. They're all just recording their lines. They're splicing it in the edit. Nobody's acting off of each other. The visual effects they're just not finished. They just don't look good, and that's, whatever, but it's just incredibly distracting. When you look at the other films, I don't really have that problem. And a lot of it is because they shot it during a pandemic, and I understand that. But they also shot the Batman during a pandemic, and that movie looks like 10,000 levels above this movie.
It's so good.
So it's inexcusable. I have a whole review written. So that's really my main issue, is that from a filmmaking perspective, it's just the bare minimum. We got to get this thing out the door. We got to get our money in. We don't really care the artistry behind it. Whatever. That's just what makes it low on my list. However, there is a lot to love in the movie.
Here we go.
I mentioned Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina, Dr. Octopus and the Green Goblin.
Yes.
I love Willem Dafoe as a Green Goblin because he acts as a villain that Peter Parker has no reference of at this point. He has never faced... In the past, Peter Parker as Spider-Man has only fought people who are essentially relatable. Like in Spider-Man Homecoming, you understand why the Vulture is doing what he's doing. You understand why Mysterio is doing what he's doing. You even understand why Thanos is doing what he's doing.
You understand why Vulture is doing something?
Yeah, he his whole deal is that I haven't seen that movie in a while, but his whole deal is that he's kind of pissed off at Tony Stark and the people who are kind of ultra rich and are like forcing people like him to clean up their messes and that sort of thing, and he wants to protect his family and that sort of thing. But what I was getting to is that the Green Goblin in No Way Home is just evil because it's fun, and he just kills people because he likes it, and there's no relating to that. He's just pure evil, and that is a really interesting dynamic. Peter, he feels like he has no other option but to kill him because he doesn't feel like... Well, on one hand, he killed his Aunt May, and he doesn't feel like he can do anything else but get his revenge. And I think that was a really good thing for us to kind of see this Peter Parker kind of struggle with. And who better to work him through that conflict than the guys, the boys, Toby and Andrew.
The boys.
Yeah. And that's... So, if you just look at behind the scenes stuff, Andrew Garfield is standing in a physical room wearing a physical Spider-Man suit, and when you watch the movie, you see this CGI Spider-Man model that doesn't look very good jump into the room, and it looks distracting, and it doesn't look good. But why don't you just photograph the real thing that's right there in front of you? I just don't get it. But I love seeing Toby and Andrew. Who didn't love seeing Toby and Andrew in this movie? I mean,
It was amazing.
It was just so much fun, and one of the best things I think Andrew Garfield is the best Peter Parker in this movie, in my opinion. I think he is I think he's perfect casting for Peter Parker. I think he is given the wrong script in his movies, but I think he is just so good in No Way Home. So much fun to watch in the theater. But I don't... If I want to watch that, I'll just watch a clip of it. I'll watch that part.
You don't have to watch the whole movie.
I'll probably never watch the whole thing again, because the first act is just really lame to me.
And there it is.
But that's my number 8. So
wow.
There we go.
Powerful, powerful stuff.
I think those are most of my hot takes. No, you know what?
Oh, he's got more.
I got more.
He's got more.
We'll
He's
see.
got more.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I have Far From Home at 7 and No Way Home at 6. So, we've talked about them at length. I think for me, Far From Home fails a lot with Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio being Tony Stark's problem. Not... I mean, obviously, Tony's dead.
Right.
So it's not like he can actually solve the problem. But it just felt like it was just a random person that they plucked from Tony's past.
Yeah.
And I guess I get the point, because the whole movie is about Peter trying to learn whether he's the new Iron Man or not, because he was funded by Tony and kind of part of the Avenger group, and he has the Iron Spider, blah blah blah, right? And so he kind of the movie's about that, but then it still feels like we have no reason to care about Mysterio.
Yeah.
And so because his enemy is already dead.
Right.
So it's like, what do we care about this guy?
Yeah.
His actual plan is really interesting, which is why I like it in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think his idea of like people will believe anything these days.
Yeah.
Because we've and that's cool because it's true in this universe.
Yeah.
We've seen so many crazy things at this point. 5 years where half of the universe was dead and then they all came back.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Of course,
right?
Anybody would believe anything.
And that, so yeah, like, I mean, he predicted the multiverse, side note. And I think he does reference Earth 616, which we talked about. We talked about that in Doctor Strange last week. Go check out that episode. It's great.
It was fun.
And that's just the odds that he would know the number, that someone in an alternate universe would dub our universe out of the billions of universes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy talk.
But that's just a tiny little thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like what you said about Zendaya and her character being kind of falling into the lap of our Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And
she doesn't seem like the same person from Homecoming to Far From Home.
Yeah.
She doesn't really have that angsty, like, edginess that she had in the first one.
Yeah. So I think you're dead on with that. I don't care about Edith either. That's whatever. Yeah. I don't know. That it's just an unremarkable movie overall.
Yeah.
I think visually, with the Mysterio stuff specifically, it looked really good with the dream sequences and the projections that they did. They're free to be super creative with that stuff, which was fun. But that's, you can put that in a good movie, and it will make it better.
Yeah. You
put it in a bad movie or a mediocre movie, and it's like, okay, the visuals are the best thing that it has to offer.
Yeah.
Like that's not necessarily a good thing.
Sure.
So, and then No Way Home. For me, I've only seen the movie once. I saw it in theaters the day it came out. I had no idea. I mean, we all kind of thought, like, oh, Loki, multiverse, we're going to have this opportunity. They're going to bring Toby and Andrew in. We're going to have all of our Spider-Men, right? Because they showed Alfred Molina or Willem Dafoe, one of the big guys.
They showed all of them in the trailers, yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, they're bringing these guys in. Surely they can bring the last two and really round this out.
And
but we didn't. Sorry, go ahead.
I will give them props that they didn't put Andrew and Toby in the trailer, because that feels like something Sony would do specifically.
Yeah.
And I was impressed that they didn't, because they have a bad rap for trailers for sure.
So I was super hyped to find out whether they would show in the movie. I really hoped that they would, and I didn't know. So I, on the day of release, I looked up showtimes, and right under the showtimes, it showed the cast for the movie.
Oh.
And it said Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire.
Oh my.
And my heart was shattered.
Oh no. That's terrible.
That would be spoiled for me on Google trying to buy tickets for this movie.
That's too bad.
It was a huge disappointment to see that. It didn't ruin the enjoyment of them getting their scenes together. Getting to have a funny, like, inside multiverse layer joke about Tobey Maguire's back. That's crazy business. So funny. That was so fun. And so, like you said, I think the beginning 70% is not good. Doctor Strange doing a spell in the presence of someone else that could potentially rip the entire multiverse apart is not great, because that's not something he would do. And then he kind of does it again in Multiverse.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, I think it is something he would do. I think it's just... I think we're just frustrated with him that it is something that he would do.
Yeah, I guess
like,
that's true, right?
Why would you do that?
Like, in front of Peter Parker?
Steven.
Come on, Steven.
Yeah.
But after Aunt May dies, we get, we have this super emotional moment.
Yeah.
He's standing outside. It's raining. We get this close-up shot with the slow rain falling down.
Beautiful shot.
And he's looking at, or like the light from J. Jonah Jameson talking about Peter Parker being a menace to society is playing right in front of him. And it's like, we've entered a new movie.
Yeah.
And now everything is great.
It does feel like
and
a
then,
movie.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden we're in the best of the best.
Right.
And then we have this big finale, and it was cool. It was fun to watch them, Spider-Man, land on the Statue of Liberty in order of release. That was fun. The fight was cool. It's cool to have Jacob Batalon have like mystic arts powers.
Yeah.
He like uses a sling ring.
I'm just like I'm so tired of the portals. They're in every movie now. I'm just like, just stop with the.
But they're so good. They're so useful.
So that's another thing. Like, this movie, they set everything in the most boring location. Like the main incident in the movie where it's shot, it's set in Happy's apartment. Like, the most boring, like, just lame. It doesn't really matter, but it's just like, why did you have Toby and Andrew make their grand appearance in Ned's grandma's house? Like, just why? It's just so, you couldn't have done something a little bit more creative. Like, why does Ned have all these magical powers all of a sudden? It's just, but it doesn't, like, I get distracted by the fact that I'm like, oh, look, it's Toby and Andrew. That's awesome.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
wow.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a super hot take for Far From Home. I think it's a extremely fiery lava hot take for No Way Home, because people are like, this movie is perfect.
It's the world's favorite
we
movie.
We get everything we've ever wanted forever. I mean, it made $2 billion in like a month.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the highest grossing films of all time now. So who cares if it was bad? They will make another one like it, right?
And that's kind of the thing, is that it makes money, and that's why they made it. There's no artistic vision. There's no filmmaking. It is, what things can we put into this to make the most money for our mega billion trillion dollar company?
Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker.
Star Wars. It's a Disney problem. And it's, and it's the same thing with the Doctor Strange Illuminati cameo. Like, what can we put in here to get more people to go, make more money? And that's what most filmmaking is. They need to make money. So that's not...
Yeah, it's a business.
It's not an inherent issue to want to make money with your film. But when that's the motivation, it results in a product that is less than amazing.
Ooh, amazing. Spectacular.
Yeah. Spectacular.
All right, we got to step on the gas here.
We do.
I think.
I'll group my next two, 6 and 7, are the Amazing Spider-Man ones, 1 and 2. So they're,
so we've just flip-flopped.
Yeah, we flipped
on the bottom 4,
which is cool. Differing opinions.
There you go.
So you don't like the Peter Parker in those movies. So I really like Peter Parker in these.
Oh.
So he is in the Amazing Spider-Man. I have Amazing Spider-Man 2 at number 7, Amazing Spider-Man at number 6. I think that, so I definitely recommend Hitop Films video on the Amazing Spider-Man, because he has researched a lot more about the kind of production and kind of the studio interference that was happening. Mark Webb, I don't know, do you know anything about Mark Webb?
I know that when I did some research to make sure that I knew his name was Mark, I knew his last name was Webb, but I didn't know his first name. It said something about being a music director before being an actual director.
Yeah. That might be
not
the case.
That musical directors aren't actual directors, just in terms of the literal director of a movie.
Yeah. I think his first film was, maybe not his first, but his most known is 500 Days of Summer. Have you seen that movie? It's
I've heard the name.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel.
Okay.
Really
rom-com?
really good rom-com.
Nice.
More drama than comedy. Really good film. And so Mark Webb, he in that movie he crafts like a really good human narrative that's super like relatable, and that's kind of what they like hiring him. I think they kind of wanted him to bring some of his, hiring Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, who have, this explosive chemistry, like the best on-screen romance chemistry you've ever seen in a superhero movie. That's like Mark Webb's secret weapon, is the relationships between these characters. But when you're making a big studio superhero movie, they want you to put in, XYZ superhero stuff. And I think a lot of the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 was studio notes and things cut out, things put in. So the Amazing Spider-Man 2, since that's my number 7, I really like that movie. It is extremely messy and goofy, and there's so much in it that is just ridiculous. But it almost feels more like a comic book Spider-Man than some of the Tom Holland ones for me. I just really like how goofy it is. They expect us to believe that Peter and Harry have been friends forever, when he just shows up out of nowhere. Yeah. It's just like, what? But
Who's this guy?
Oh, it's just so. It's such a silly movie. That's the question. Andrew Garfield's accent in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is just egregious.
It's all over the place.
It's so funny. But at its core, I really feel like it's a good Peter Parker story. I feel the emotion behind Gwen's death and his kind of existential crisis that he goes through after that. I really wish he would have gotten a third movie to kind of explore that. But The Amazing Spider-Man, my number 6, when he originally becomes Spider-Man, like you talked about, he's kind of on this rage quest to kill the murderer of his uncle, and he's a super big jerk. He's like throwing guns at cops and like tying criminals to walls and leaving them there, whatever. Yeah. Kind of hassling them. But you really do see a growth from that point to the end of the movie where he becomes Spider-Man. He kind of starts rageful, and then the moment that on the bridge, he puts his kind of vendetta aside to save others, and he saves a child. He says, "I'm Spider-Man," and that's like the moment. That was a
great impression.
Thank you.
I'm Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. That's like the moment where he becomes Spider-Man, and he's learned to kind of put others before himself. Culminating in his really great final sequence where he's swinging through. He's been shot in the leg by the police, and all these New Yorkers are like, "We gotta help Spider-Man get to the Oscorp, line up the cranes." And it's so silly and dumb, but like the city like rallies behind Spider-Man because they've come to trust him and want him to, and the city needs him at that moment, and they rally behind him and help him get to where he needs to go. And from a filmmaking perspective, these, especially the first one, they did a lot of it's like Spider-Man swinging practically. They did a lot of practical effects. The unfortunate thing is that it got chopped to bits by the editors, and so you don't really see that, which is really unfortunate. But I used to hate these movies. I really did. Ooh. I used to hate them. I went from seeing them as a kid, being a big fan, seeing them later after Tom Holland came around, being like major hatred for Amazing Spider-Man movies, and now I'm back around on the Amazing Spider-Man train. I think they're a little bit underrated, a little bit misunderstood.
Misunderstood. They're a little bit understood. I get where your mind was.
Yeah.
They were understood.
Yeah. But it's whatever. I really like those. But if you don't, I also really because they're so silly and dumb. So I understand all of the criticism. Because he says, "Hey, give me that gun." Hey. Oh man. So that brings us to number 5. This is where things get really good. The top 5.
All of these movies, in my opinion, are fantastic.
That's awesome. That's good to hear.
So, do you not think the same?
No. I definitely do.
Okay.
What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Spider-Man 3.
Okay. That's what I figured. I was going to say, I feel like Spider-Man 3 gets a lot of unnecessary hate, but it's actually higher on my list, so I'll let you go ahead.
Okay. Tobey Maguire. No. This movie's really fun. It's just there's too many villains.
Yeah.
I know that's like the thing people say. I think, and I know that Sam Raimi has had like a lot of issues with the studio, and they like, we want you to do Venom because we're gonna do Sinister Six, all this stuff, and so they kind of forced him to do this.
Yeah. And
so this is like his middle finger to the studios, like, I'm gonna make this movie bad. Which I don't know. I'm not Sam Raimi, so I can't speak for his actual experience, but
yeah.
I just think that the movie suffers from too many B plots and not enough A plot.
Yeah.
Which is something that No Way Home also suffers from.
Yeah.
I think. I do really enjoy Tobey's losing his powers story and getting sick with love. That's not this movie. That's Spider-Man 2. I don't know anything about any of these movies.
We'll get
Who
there.
am I to talk about these movies? This is the movie where he gets the Venom suit and does his get on up dance.
Yep.
I don't get on up. You know. Right. So, yeah.
I can talk more in depth about it if you'd like.
James Franco is Harry Osborn in these movies.
He sure is.
And I think he is really bad in this movie.
He's so funny.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have a fork. You can like hear it like slide off his teeth, the metal.
So funny. Yeah.
So good. And then he just like hides under the table when the car drives by.
Yeah.
You know, like where else could he have disappeared to?
Little Goblin Jr.
Yeah. So I think it's so goofy that they did the amnesia stuff. And I don't know much about, as we've said, we're not comic book readers, so we don't have that, ginormous knowledge bank.
We're totally baseless right now.
I don't like his like obsession with liking MJ. I don't think that was really something that they had in the first movie even. Or necessarily the second one. And so for me it feels a little awkward that he's suddenly like, I've loved MJ this whole time just as much as you. like in like the first scene of the first movie, he like flirts with her with the Eastern Seaboard microscope line.
Well,
but then after that,
the first movie, Harry and MJ are straight up dating. So it's baseless, Joshua.
should I just leave?
But what you're saying is they don't really build to it organically or naturally, which I agree with.
So, I don't know anything about anything. All right, I'm wrong. Don't consider my ranking even remotely accurate at this point. So, Spider-Man 3 is not as good as the other ones because there are too many villains in my opinion.
There are.
There you go. Move on. What's your number 5?
Oh man, mine is Homecoming. So
All right.
yeah, Spider-Man Homecoming. I really, really like Spider-Man Homecoming. I think the best thing it does is make you believe that this kid is a high schooler, and it makes the story revolves around Peter being in high school, and that is something we hadn't really seen before, and I think it does that really, really well. Why are you rolling your eyes at me, man?
I'm not. I'm rolling my eyes at myself, man.
Oh man, yeah.
How can I be so stupid?
Oh gosh.
Continue.
I really love the cast. They all have really good chemistry. Tom Holland, Jacob Batalon, and Zendaya, all have really, really good chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Michael
are
Keaton.
really. Oh yeah, Michael Keaton, a veteran actor.
Mm-hmm.
One of my
Birdman.
favorite villains in the MCU for sure. He just has such a nice presence. It's like, oh, you're an actor. Like, oh,
That's a
thank
scary guy. Yeah.
Yeah. A genuine like twist when you find out that he's I don't even remember the girl's name. What's the love
I don't know,
interest's
dude.
name? I don't know. The girl. No, it's like
Rose.
I don't know. Anyway, you find out that he's dating
Paige.
He's dating the villain's daughter, which was a genuine like, oh my gosh. I thought that when I first saw it, I thought when he opens the door that, as villains do, that he like had kidnapped the girl and her family or was like holding them hostage or whatever. But no, he's just a family man. He's just like,
Liz.
hey Pete, how you doing? Oh yeah, Liz.
Sorry. Her name is Liz.
Yeah. He's like, hey Pete, welcome to my house. I'm Michael Keaton. Yeah.
And I like it because it's like he opens the door and the music just stops.
Yeah.
And it's like silent in the theater and everybody's like,
Yeah.
that was a great moment.
Yeah, Tom Holland does a really good job in that scene of looking genuinely terrified. He's like,
Pulling
he's
the
not
blood out of his face.
Yeah, he's
somehow.
not doing a good job at hiding the fact that he's Spider-Man. Like, I love that in this movie the villain like figures it out immediately. Once he talks to Peter Parker, he's like, what do you do, Pete? And then he's like, oh, this guy must be Spider-Man.
Right. He figured it out so quick.
Yeah, I love that because you would figure it out. Like when you put all the pieces
Internship
together.
with Tony Stark.
Yeah. You were
Spider-Man showed up in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, where my daughter and you were, coincidentally. So,
yeah.
Love that movie. I think that movie ends super well where he gets his super fancy Spider-Man suit taken away by Tony Stark and he has to grow into Spider-Man on his own in his own handmade bad Spider-Man suit. And
which still looks cool.
It still looks really cool. Yeah, I really like it. I really like it a lot. That's my number 5.
It's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right. My number 4, this might be a hot take coming in here, is not Spider-Man Homecoming.
Wow. Hot take.
It's Spider-Man 2.
Wow, that's a pretty hot take.
I guess I'll just talk about what I was going to talk about in Spider-Man 3 because I thought I was in that movie, but it's in this movie. Alfred Molina brings up poetry and talking about how being lovesick is real and holding that in can literally make you sick, right? And then this is the movie where MJ finds out that he's Spider-Man, right? Is that right?
Nope. I don't. Wait.
No?
Yes.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, she
I
does.
think so.
At the very end.
Yeah, at the very end, right?
Very,
yes.
very
And so we have the whole. Toby wants to confess to her because he didn't at the end of the first movie, of his first movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's holding in his love, right? And he's not expressing it, right? He's keeping it inside, which is something that Alfred Molina warns against, and he loses his powers, right?
Yeah.
And that's like a fun thing. And then what does he do to regain his power? He expresses his love or feelings in something or what? I don't know.
No,
How does that resolve?
He has a conversation with Aunt May, and she kind of is inspiring him to. She says that something about even heroes have to give up their dreams or whatever, and something very wise that inspires him to put the suit back on to stop Mr. Octavius.
Doc Ock,
Doctor.
Who's a great movie actor in this movie. Dude, I'm failing.
He is a great movie in this actor.
Crashing and burning.
Oh man, it's Wednesday. It is Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
He's graduating in like a couple days.
Dude, I'll be honest. I haven't done anything with my brain in the last 2 days. Like,
yeah.
Well, that's not true, actually. I've been learning about computers.
Yeah.
But not watching Spider-Man movies, obviously. What's his name? Oh, gosh. He plays Jeff in Community, and he is the bank teller.
Bank teller, yeah. Mm-hmm.
In this movie.
What a
That's
cameo.
a funny scene.
Yeah.
I like Doc Ock, as I said. He is really. I think it's cool to have this character who's like a really good guy, just kind of gets corrupted, and isn't really even evil ever. Yeah. Mm. He just wants to build his machine.
Yeah.
Like
finish my machine. The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a fun one.
Yeah.
I think Tobey Maguire is so good in this movie. Mm-hmm. Kirsten Dunst. She's in all of these movies.
She sure is.
Not much more to say about that. No offense. She's not a very good MJ, I think.
Yeah, that's
She's so rude all the
really
time.
Weird. Yeah. She's very demanding. Kind of a crazy person.
It's not great.
Yeah.
So, I know that a lot of people say Spider-Man 2 is the number one Spider-Man movie.
Some people do say that.
Yeah, some people do say that. Neither of us do. Here we go.
We'll see.
But what is your next one on the list?
Number 4, Spider-Man 3.
Spider-Man 3.
So, yeah, gush about the Raimi films. My goodness. So, these are also kind of ones that I've grown to appreciate so much more throughout the years. He's laughing uncontrollably.
Just don't even look at me.
He's having a rough time. Let me just carry this podcast for a second.
Carry, please.
Yeah, Spider-Man 3, I feel, has gotten an extreme amount of hate. I feel like the comic book movie people have convinced Sam Raimi that he made a terrible movie because in a few interviews that he's done, like he he talks about how he genuinely did the best that he could, but because of studio like requirements that he put Venom in, that he just they were basically writing the script as they were shooting the movie, and that definitely shows. Like, it is, you have all of these. You have your A plot, which is Peter Parker, basically. Well, he does get the symbiote, and it's basically him. He's wrestling with his own ego. He's gotten to a point as Spider-Man where he's digging the attention. He's finally somebody. He's not the nerd in the corner of the school anymore. He's being noticed by people. He's eating up all the attention that he's getting, and he's wrestling with his inner ego, and he feels like nothing can possibly go wrong anymore. I finally got the girl. I'm going to propose. Everything's going to be perfect. I'm Spider-Man. And then his ego gets the better of him, and the symbiote only heightens that. And that's something that I love about Spider-Man 3, is that the symbiote isn't the only thing that sends Peter down a dark path. Peter, by himself, is already down a dark path, going down the wrong path, and the symbiote just heightens that. That's what it does. It heightens your emotion, or your inner emotions, or whatever, your strongest feelings at that time.
Sure.
And that by itself would be a really good movie. And then you have the plot of Sandman being revealed to be the true killer of Uncle Ben, and he did it kind of on accident, and he's just trying to provide for his daughter, but Peter is kind of overcome by this rage, and just that by itself is a really interesting story that could be told in a movie. And then you have Harry, who has been, throughout the 3 movies, I think it is built up that his conflict with Peter, in the first movie, he sees that he thinks that Spider-Man kills his father. He knows that Peter Parker takes Spider-Man's pictures. So it's this kind of, he is resentful of Peter because he won't tell him who Spider-Man is. And then once he finds out who Spider-Man is, it makes sense that he would, be very angry and retaliate in some way. And that dynamic would be a really interesting movie all on its own. So you have all of these things that would make really good movies shoved into one movie, plus a little Eddie Brock Topher Grace performance, which is pretty funny. You have all those things.
God, kill Peter Parker.
Yeah. You're trash, Brock. But I personally, like, even though it is messy, I'm like shocked that Sam Raimi was able to craft any sort of film that resembled any sort of cohesive narrative. I honestly think it is a great conclusion to that trilogy, and I'll stop talking about it.
Boom. There it is. He's going to stop.
Yep. Great.
What's your next one?
Next, number 3 is Spider-Man, the first.
Wow.
So, yeah. So here's the explanation.
2 movies.
Yeah. So I have Spider-Man at it's actually my number. We ended up talking about Spider-Man last in our ranking, but it's actually my number 2. Star Wars: A New Hope was my number 1. Movie.
Yes. Sorry.
We just ended up talking about it last, but Spider-Man it's the most nostalgic to me. It's the one I watch most often, but it's not what I think is the best Spider-Man movie. So that's why it's a little bit lower than the next 2. But I talked about that one. I don't really have much else to say about it. I think it's just revolutionary, and like it's very corny and it's very silly. And I just love every
It's got that perfect Sam Raimi.
It does.
Just goofy.
And Willem Dafoe is just master in that movie.
So good. He's something of a scientist
He
himself.
He is. He really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my number 3.
Spider-Man is also my number 3.
Nice.
So the takes get hotter.
For the first time.
That's
this
true.
list we align, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I think I don't have the same connection to the Tobey Maguire movies that you do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really grow up a superhero guy. I didn't have all the action figures and the toys and all that stuff as much. I was just Legos and Star Wars.
Yeah, Stargate SG-1.
Yeah. Dude, the Wraiths, terrifying.
Scary.
Dude, they like suck the life out of you. It's but yeah, I think you talked about Spider-Man being revolutionary. I think this movie really jump-started comic book movies being cool. I don't think we have the MCU without the original Spider-Man trilogy.
Absolutely.
I guess X-Men was also kind of around this time.
Yeah.
But those movies were bad. So
I mean, they're fine.
I think we have that in the list to talk about that way down the line.
The first two
to
are
talk
pretty
about
good.
X-Men movies.
But yeah, I think there's the Spider-Man and X-Men, and we're kind of the first of the, because they had, for whatever reason, they started with making like Blade, which is like a weird superhero movie to start with. But these were the first, like, I don't know, superhero movies.
I mean, I guess there's like old Hulk movies.
Oh yeah, sure, that's true.
And old Batman stuff and Superman over and over again.
The superhero
but this is like
blockbuster, I think, is what.
Yeah, this is like the first one where people were like, "Oh wait, this could be good."
Yeah, right. Howard the Duck was a movie.
You're right. He showed up in Guardians twice.
Yeah. Anything else to say about Spider-Man?
Willem Dafoe is iconic. And I think
the formula.
And he jumps up on the glass and he's like, "Yeah." Literally every single thing he says in this movie is so good.
Yeah, Cosmonaut makes that point where he's just like, he's so funny in every scene he's in. And it's, he's funny and he's terrifying.
You can't do this to me.
You know how much I
sacrificed. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
And then just for him to die and his last words are, like so soft, like
don't tell Harry.
And then don't tell Harry.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so good. That's great. Okay, my number 2, just because this is a fiery hot take, I think, now.
Oh boy.
After this discussion, I have Spider-Man Homecoming at number 2.
I forgot about it. All right, there you go.
So, as I kind of talked about earlier, I wasn't a huge Spider-Man guy. Mm-hmm. I was all in on the superheroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I didn't really, I had seen all those other Spider-Man movies, but I wasn't like, oh wow, Peter Parker's my favorite role model, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
But then we had Civil War, and Tom Holland is so funny, and he made a joke about Star Wars, and I was like, nice.
He's so good in that movie.
And then we get Homecoming, and it felt like this perfect quintessential Spider-Man movie to me. And I was like, oh, Peter Parker is so Peter Parker, and Spider-Man is so Spider-Man. And I was like, this is great. He does a front flip in front of the American flag. It's perfect.
Do a flip.
Yeah. And Michael Keaton's Vulture is the best villain in all of these movies.
Yeah, well.
Hot take.
That is a hot take.
That's a hot take. But I think he's the best villain in this movie. I think Willem Dafoe is better as an actor.
Sure.
But I think his villain, he's just a villain, right? He's just evil. Mm-hmm. Michael Keaton's Vulture has reasons, which I think you may have brought up in the opposite earlier. But I think that makes Vulture a better villain.
Yeah, I think that.
I
enjoyed the fact that when Tom Holland has to fight, Green Goblin, that it's that kind of difference. But
yeah. So I just really liked Vulture. I thought it was cool that he had kind of already figured out his way in the world of superheroes and being this high-profile criminal organization at below Avenger threat level.
Yeah.
So he's not going to get involved with the big baddies, the baddie-bo baddies. He's going to keep it low profile as much as he can, while also making bank because he's got a big house.
Yeah, he does.
Right? So, like, good for him, I guess. Taking it back, no. Making good money, but not being a criminal,
Yeah.
Anyway, I just really, really like his performance. The scene in the car where he learns who Peter Parker is.
Yeah.
And then after Liz leaves the car and he puts the gun on the headrest of the passenger side.
Yeah, dude.
Jaw-dropping.
Legendary.
So amazing.
So hardcore.
I love that performance. Yeah.
He's so casual about it.
So you're going to thank me for saving your life?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so good. If you come back,
man,
I kill you.
I need to watch that one again. It's really good.
It's so, yeah. So, and then you talked about how Peter in these movies gets funded by Iron Man. I think their relationship is really well done in this movie specifically. We don't really get much more outside of Infinity War and Endgame afterwards because he's dead. But in this movie, we have multiple conversations between the two, and at one point he even takes the suit away, and we get, no girlfriend, bottom of the barrel, no funding suit.
Yeah.
And he has, he doesn't have the special eyes anymore, all that stuff. He's down to bare bones, and now he's facing the biggest threat. He has to go up against Vulture and on this giant airplane in the sky.
Yeah.
Right? He's no longer friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's found himself in a situation where he can't back down, or he could and call the Avengers because we have like an actual threat. He's going to steal Thor's belt. But he doesn't back down, and he's brave, and I like that a lot. And then he's also merciful at the end, which is something he kind of forgets in No Way Home.
For sure.
And has to be taught again by Tobey. Shout out to Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
So, I just really think that it's solid all the way through.
Yeah. I really like, now that you said that, it reminded me, I really like the fact that the Vulture, he's not like, it's not a world-ending world, like, the stakes aren't that high. Like, all Vulture's doing is stealing a plane full of stuff. Like, it's not the huge stakes, but that's what makes it so cool for Peter Parker is he doesn't have to go stop him. Like, if he doesn't, like, what's going to happen? Like, the Avengers will probably get him later. It'll probably be fine. Yeah. But he takes it upon himself because he knows that being a hero, that's what it means, is to, to put himself in that position and take action. And I think that's just really cool. So, if we could,
this is the one I've seen the most. So
yes,
yeah,
I'm gonna pause because I need to go.
You're dark.
I need to turn on a light.
I just noticed. I was like, oh, the sun went down or something.
Yeah, it really did. We'll be right back.
You were talking about how you suddenly think Homecoming is so great. It's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I it's in my top 5. Okay. I mean, come on.
I get you.
Yeah, so that was
my number 2.
Your number 2?
And hopefully we've snuck all this way without you remembering that we were going to bring this movie up. Both of our number 1s are the animated Sony picture films. What?
False. I got a hot take for you. Because my number 2 is Into the Spider-Verse. You jumped the gun a little bit there.
There's no way.
Yeah. No, dude. Listen. I told you I had lots of hot takes. He sits back.
Go on. Tell me. This is a 2-hour podcast right now. you give me your thoughts.
Listen, we got
your dreams.
You gotta give me time to just get all my hot takes out. Oh man, dude. Okay, I love Into the Spider-Verse. It is a phenomenal film. It is a phenomenal Spider-Man film. It has changed how studios approach animated features for the rest of the world. It is so expertly crafted. It is a beautiful movie. I love everything about it. I don't really have any negatives, really. I do think that the alternate universe spider people, especially the Spider-Ham, become a little bit distracting. A little bit. But I really, really love the story, the relationship between Peter B. Parker, Miles Morales, and the kind of mental relationship they have, and how anybody, anywhere can be Spider-Man. I think that's just a great message and story for a Spider-Man movie, and Kingpin being the villain and just wanting to be back with his family, like a really just emotional story for an animated movie. I really respect it for that. I love
It's so good.
I love it so much. I know it's not my number one, so that's a little bit disappointing for Joshua. Do you want me to talk about?
Of course,
Spider-Man
of
2?
course. It's
No,
your
then
number
I'll let
one.
you I'll let you gush about
Oh, man.
Into the Spider-Verse. It's not that I don't like Into the Spider-Verse.
Clearly you
It
hate
sounded
it.
like I don't like
I
it.
don't know.
I think Spider-Man 2 is just the perfect Spider-Man story. It takes Peter Parker through a journey of discovering, if I don't have to be Spider-Man, why would I be Spider-Man? He's beaten down time and time again. This movie, literally everything goes wrong for Peter. It's the epitome of what Stan Lee said. Like I said in that quote from Stan Lee, he has money problems. He doesn't really have trouble getting the girl in this movie. He has trouble getting the girl because he feels like it's his responsibility as Spider-Man to push her away. So there's that. He's I don't know if anybody thinks that Tobey Maguire is the best looking man around, but I think I look like him apparently, and I think we're both fairly average looking.
No.
There's that.
You're one of the best. One of the best.
No, hey man, I can acknowledge it for sure. A story where he is just struggling with all of those things. He not only has to push Mary Jane away, he has to watch her get engaged to another man.
Astronaut.
He has to... An astronaut, a very good-looking astronaut. He loses one of his mentors to these evil, robot arms or whatever. He is being harassed by J. Jonah Jameson constantly. He can't get a break. His best friend hates him. Everything just goes wrong for Peter Parker in this movie. And like Into the Spider-Verse, the Peter Parker there says, we always get back up. As Spider-Man, we get knocked down time and time again, but we keep getting back up. And that's like the core of what Spider-Man is. And that's just the core of what this movie is. He gets knocked down.
I get knocked down.
But I get up again.
But I get up again.
And the filmmaking is so good. The one of my favorite scenes in any movie is when he gives up his powers. He says, "I'm Spider-Man no more." He has this really emotional conversation with Uncle Ben in his mind, where he has to basically, Uncle Ben is pleading with him to do something with his power. With great power comes great responsibility. But Peter's like, no, I'm sorry, Uncle Ben. Like, this isn't what I want my life to be. I want to be happy. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm giving it up. And so he gives it up, and then it cuts to him eating a hot dog, and raindrops keep falling on my head. And it's just, and there's a freeze frame. Oh my gosh. It's it's one of my favorite scenes in any movie. And it's just, it serves that character so well. Like, he's just like, I don't have to be Spider-Man. I can look at a building on fire, and I don't have to go save it.
Everything kind of goes well for him at that point too, right?
Yeah, he starts getting his grades back up in school, that sort of thing. But when, he talks to Aunt May, and Aunt May kind of, you kind of get the feeling that Aunt May kind of has a inkling that he's Spider-Man. She's kind of like, whoa, where's Spider-Man these days? Like, you used to take his pictures, and the city's really hurting without him, and that sort of thing. But he finally gets, it's when Dr. Octopus, Doc Ock, abducts Mary Jane that he finally decides to be Spider-Man again. And save the world from the power of the sun. I just love it. So much. Great Peter Parker stuff.
As a
all right, bring us home, Joshua,
fraud,
please.
I'd just like to bring up my opinions on Into the Spider-Verse, a movie I have seen more than once, and within the last 10 years, apparently. I, as a wannabe film buff, I think all around, I think this has the highest quality in terms of every area. We have a really good soundtrack that fits the main character, Miles.
Really good.
We have the best animation, Western animation. There's a show from Japan that I've watched that I think is actually better looking, but that's neither here nor there. And I think the voice acting is superb. The guy from New Girl, I can't think of his name. I think his name is Jake Johnson. I wanted to call him Josh. That might be his character in the show. I don't know.
Josh.
He's really, really good, and it's the easiest movie for me to go back and watch again. And I think part of that is because of that production quality, and like it's so obvious to me that everybody who worked on this film knew that it was going to be good and knew that they had to put all of themselves into it. Yeah. And it's like this beautiful collective creative story. And you have like this cool comic booky like dot art. I don't remember what it's called. There is if you've ever heard of the YouTube channel Cinema Wins, he talks about the specific art style, because it's not like this fancy like run-of-the-mill dot art. It's like a special different version that's even cooler and more rare. And so there's a shot where they're in the dad's police car going to school, and it's like in focus in the back half of the car looking forward, and you can see the dad in focus, and he turns around back looking at the road after talking to Miles, and he makes a joke about all the coffee shops, and then it changes focus to the coffee shop that's at the corner as they drive by, and the dots that comprise everything in the movie like spread out to like simulate out of focus, and then the dots realign in the background to show focus on the coffee shop as it drives by. And it's cool to see how the literal art is used to simulate a camera. And that is when animation is cool, because it can put the camera anywhere. and you can do anything with it. And so to be creative with a camera that can be anywhere, that's like the best advantage that animation has over real life. So that's it. It's more than anything, I think, just the overall collective project that I love. And it tells a really, really good story. Miles is a very compelling character. Even Peter B, kind of having to follow the shadow of himself and this perfect Peter Parker in being a mentor that he doesn't want to be. Gwen's character having to look at having worked with partners in the past and then not having friends after certain events occur in that world that I will not spoil. And then coming into the new world and having to work with partners again. It's, wow. It's so beautiful. It's so amazing.
Wow.
So, and I'm super excited. I am worried that the Hollywood sequel bug will kill this new movie, and it'll just be a cash grab. It won't look as good. It won't be as good. We'll see. Who knows?
We'll see.
So
I have hope.
There you have it. There is one good ranking and my ranking of the Spider-Man movies. I gotta go watch them all because I know nothing. No, I'm just being a little too hard on myself.
I think your opinions would probably stay the same,
I didn't know which movies they were.
It's just those nuanced details
of which movie it took place in, or who the actors are, and whatever. Yeah,
this is a long one.
Okay.
Oh my. Big fan.
Before we get to the outro, this is like a weird way to connect these two things. But I have in my recommendations, you may have noticed this and been like, what the heck is this doing here?
Yes.
I watched Saving Private Ryan for the first time on Monday.
Man, I haven't seen it either.
Such a good movie. It's 2 hours and 50 minutes long. Okay? Long movie.
Oh,
it's
wow.
about, I don't know if it's true or not. I actually don't know. Probably not. It's about a patrol of from the U.S. Army, like on D-Day, right? They're storming the beach, and then they like push through. You know, it's horrific. It's actually a pretty like gnarly movie. It's kind of gross stuff. You know, to be real, because it was a massacre. You know, on that beach, terrible. And they kind of win out eventually. And they get orders from the front or I guess from home, not the front, that they are to save Private Ryan, who his 3 brothers elsewhere in the world all died, and the mother got the news that 3 of her 4 sons died. And so they're going to go and get the last brother so that she doesn't lose all of her sons in the war. They're going to bring him back home.
Yeah.
And so they're like, this is a ridiculous order. He's a soldier. Like, that's the whole point. I mean, it's not the whole point, but, you know, like giving his life for the country. That's like the idea. And so the movie is about this random squad of guys going to save Private Ryan. And they don't really have a fine point of where he is, so they're kind of just walking around France trying to find him. And I noted the editing, because I wanted to talk about it when we were talking about Amazing Spider-Man and how bad the editing is. There is a specific moment where Parker from Avatar is in this movie, and I don't know his name, and he delivers a stellar performance in this scene. So it's nighttime, candlelight, dark church, destroyed, right? Setting the scene. And 2 of the other soldiers and him are having a conversation about the moral ambiguity of their mission. Risking more lives to save one life. You know, that sort of thing. And Parker from Avatar's character, the medic, we'll just call him the medic, he's talking about how he would pretend to be asleep when his mom would come home, and he just knew that she wanted to talk to him, but he was pretending to be asleep. And he's like, looking back at it now, he's a medic in the army, he's like, wow, why did I waste those opportunities to talk to my mom, and now I may never see her again, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so the other two guys are on shot B and he's on shot A, and they're talking in so he brings that up, and then they talk for a second, and it cuts back to him, and it's like through the walls, wood boards. So there's a board here and a board here, and you see his face in between. Like, that's like kind of the mid-ground, he's in the background. And it like cuts to him, and there's like firelight on the side, right? And he's like lit up by that fire, and he just starts talking like at the instant that it cuts back to him. And for whatever reason, it was just like he's like sitting there, blank stare, talking to them. They're not even listening to him anymore. But it just felt like I was struck by how good this like shot composition was, and the specifically that cut where it cuts and it's like and then he starts talking so like very quick. I paused the movie and left the room, and then came back in and pressed play, because I mean it was crazy good. Anyway, such a great movie. I've been on a war movie kick recently. I watched Imitation Game last night. That was a good one. I watched Dunkirk a couple weeks ago. That was really good. So yeah, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, bad editing. Saving Private Ryan, good editing. All right.
Good stuff.
We talked about what we're going to do next week. We're getting Brian Zur.
Yeah.
We do have, I just noticed we have a problem with Obi-Wan and our recording date. So that may need to be amended.
That's right. Yeah.
So we'll have to figure that out. Or we'll just talk about that and then bring him in afterwards. We can record the two separate sessions or something. Who knows?
We'll figure it out.
That was the longest episode we have produced.
Hope you listened.
Thank you so much for getting through it all.
It's worth it for all the hot takes, I'm telling you.
Me. We are Quarter Twins here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, and recently TikTok. We have our first TikTok over there.
We'll be over there.
I'm gonna have free time here without a job and money, so I will be making TikToks, making YouTube clips, doing all sorts of fun stuff, making content for you guys.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be fun. With that said, guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week for Obi-Wan and Brian Zur. Outro. Roll it.